Imagine being surrounded by your closest friends and stabbed 23 times just because they thought it was the best thing for the country. That's what happened to the most powerful man in the ancient world. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we are diving deep into one of history's most dramatic and infamous tales of betrayal, the assassination of Julius Caesar. This isn't just a story from a history book, it's a gut-wrenching human drama of friendship, ambition, and a fatal misunderstanding. Imagine the most powerful man in the world, a celebrated general and a beloved leader, brought down not by foreign enemies on the battlefield, but by his own friends in the heart of Rome. So, who was Julius Caesar? Born in 100 BC into a noble but not particularly wealthy family, Caesar was ambitious from the very beginning. He was a brilliant military strategist, a charismatic politician, and a gifted writer. His campaigns in Gaul, what we now know as modern-day France, were legendary. He didn't just conquer territory, he won the hearts of his soldiers who were fiercely loyal to him. They saw him as a man who shared their hardships, fought alongside them, and always had their backs. Back in Rome, however, the political scene was a snake pit. The Roman Republic was governed by a Senate, made up of powerful aristocrats who were deeply suspicious of anyone gaining too much popularity or power. They saw Caesar's victories and his connection with the common people as a direct threat to their authority and the traditional Roman way of life. They feared he wanted to dismantle the Republic and crown himself king. The tension reached a boiling point in 49 BC. The Senate, feeling threatened by Caesar's military might and immense popularity, ordered him to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. For Caesar, this was a death sentence. He knew that without the protection of his legions, his political enemies would immediately prosecute and ruin him. He faced a choice: obey and face certain political destruction, or defy the Senate and plunge Rome into civil war. Caesar made his legendary decision at a small river called the Rubicon, the northern border of Italy. By crossing it with his army, he was declaring war on the Senate. This act gave us the phrase, crossing the Rubicon, meaning to pass a point of no return. The civil war was swift. Caesar's military genius was unmatched. He chased his main rival, Pompey the Great, all the way to Egypt and defeated the senatorial armies. By 45 BC, the war was over, and Caesar was the undisputed master of Rome. He was declared dictator perpetuo, or dictator for life. Now, this is where the story takes its tragic turn. Caesar wasn't a tyrant in the way we might think. He initiated a series of popular reforms. He granted citizenship to people in the provinces, created a new calendar, the Julian calendar, which we basically still use, and launched massive public works projects that created jobs. He was trying to stabilize a republic that had been racked by a century of internal conflict. He was, in many ways, a progressive ruler, but for a group of senators, his absolute power was unacceptable. They called themselves the Liberators, and they genuinely believed they were saving the Republic from a would-be king. The irony is that many of these men owed their careers and even their lives to Caesar. He had pardoned them after the Civil War, given them positions of power, and treated them as friends. The conspiracy was led by two key figures, Gaius Cassius Longinus and Marcus Junius Brutus. Cassius was the main instigator, a man who had a long-standing personal and political grudge against Caesar. He was the one who recruited others, fanning the flames of their fears and ambitions. But the real symbolic heart of the conspiracy was Brutus. This is what makes the story so heartbreaking. Brutus's connection to Caesar was deep and personal. Caesar had a long-standing affair with Brutus's mother, Servilia, and there were even rumors that Brutus might have been Caesar's illegitimate son. True or not, Caesar treated Brutus like a son. He pardoned him after the Civil War, promoted him to high office, and genuinely loved him. For Brutus, the decision to join the conspiracy was agonizing. He was torn between his personal affection for Caesar and his devotion to the Roman Republic. His ancestors had famously overthrown Rome's last king centuries earlier, and Brutus felt a heavy weight of legacy on his shoulders. Cassius and the other conspirators manipulated this, leaving notes in his home that said things like, "Brutus, you are asleep. and you are no true Brutus, urging him to act and save Rome. In the end, his sense of public duty, as he saw it, won out over his personal loyalty. The day chosen for the assassination was the Ides of March, March 15th, 44th BC. The air in Rome was thick with rumors and bad omens. Caesar's wife, Calpurnia, had a terrifying nightmare and begged him not to go to the Senate that day. A soothsayer had famously warned Caesar to beware the Ides of March. But Caesar, ever the pragmatist, brushed these warnings aside. He didn't want to appear weak or superstitious. One of the conspirators even went to his house to personally escort him, ensuring he wouldn't change his mind. As Caesar entered the portico of the Theatre of Pompey, where the Senate was meeting, the conspirators surrounded him. They pretended they were there to support a petition from one of their own. Tullius Cimber grabbed Caesar's toga, pulling it down from his neck. This was the signal. Immediately the others drew their daggers, which they had hidden in their togas. The first blow was struck by Casca. Caesar, surprised, fought back. He was a soldier after all. He grabbed Casca's arm and stabbed him with his stylus, a sharp writing instrument. For a moment it looked like he might actually fight them off, but he was hopelessly outnumbered, surrounded by 60 men, with about 24 of them actively stabbing him. He was being pushed and stabbed from all sides, a whirlwind of betrayal. And then, through the chaos, he saw him. Marcus Junius Brutus, his protege, his friend, the man he loved like a son, standing before him with a dagger in his hand. Accounts vary on what happened next. The Roman historian Suetonius says Caesar, upon seeing Brutus, resigned himself to his fate, pulled his toga over his head to cover his face, and stopped resisting. Shakespeare famously immortalized his last words as, "Et tu, Brute," and you, Brutus, while he probably said it in Greek, "Kai su teknon," meaning, you too, my child. The sentiment is the same. It's the ultimate expression of shock and heartbreak. The physical wounds were fatal, but this was the wound that broke his spirit. Caesar fell at the base of a statue of his former rival, Pompey the Great, an incredibly bitter irony. He had been stabbed 23 times. The aftermath was not what the liberators had hoped for. They ran into the streets, shouting, "Liberty, freedom, tyranny is dead." But the people of Rome did not celebrate with them. They were horrified. They had loved Caesar. At his public funeral, Caesar's right-hand man, Mark Antony, delivered a masterful eulogy. He read Caesar's will, which left a considerable sum of money to every single Roman citizen, and turned his private gardens into a public park. The crowd, moved by Caesar's generosity and enraged by Antony's words, turned into a vengeful mob. They hunted down the conspirators. Brutus and Cassius were forced to flee Rome. Instead of restoring the Republic, the assassination of Julius Caesar plunged Rome into another 13 years of brutal civil war. The liberators were eventually defeated and killed. And out of the ashes of that conflict rose Caesar's adopted son, Octavian, who would go on to become Augustus, the first Roman emperor. In a supreme twist of irony, the men who killed Caesar to prevent one man from having supreme power ultimately paved the way for the end of the Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire. Their act of liberation brought about the very thing they feared most. The story of Julius Caesar's death is a timeless lesson about ambition, loyalty, and the tragic consequences of political violence. It shows how personal relationships can get tangled up in the grand sweep of history, and how even well-intentioned acts can have disastrous, unforeseen consequences. It's a powerful reminder that betrayal from a friend is the most devastating cut of all. Thanks so much for watching. What do you think? Were Brutus and the conspirators heroes or villains? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next video. See you next time.